A little bit about the Tiny Houses of Hope project is that the whole concept is for affordable housing for people that are typically the very last on the list of housing. We serve Hope Through Navigation serves people with criminal backgrounds or substance use disorder history. And so we were trying to figure out why we had so many clients that were working but didn't have housing. They were precariously housed. And come to find out, it's because there were so many people turning them down because of their criminal background. And so I set out to figure out how we can provide housing for them. And so that is how that was the stirring of the tiny houses, is just meeting so many people and living, paying rent at KPEP or doing things that they were not stably housed in a very good living condition. And so as an organization that exclusively serves people with criminal backgrounds, it was really paramount that we figure out a way to make sure that they had some of those cornerstone foundations like housing and employment. Theoretically, you do your time, and that is your debt to society, is that you've basically paid for the debt, for the crime that you made. But in reality, it doesn't work that way. People pay for the crimes for the rest of their lives. And it's a very inequitable system that basically stigmatizes people with criminal backgrounds based on the fact that they have a criminal background. People may not even know what crime they were convicted of. But if you say, I was convicted, or, I've been to prison, or I've been to jail, people automatically have a preconceived ideal about what that means. And it's unfortunate because statistics show that people that have criminal backgrounds make the best tenants and they make the best employees. So it actually doesn't fit the model of saying that people won't pay their rent if they have a criminal background, they'll tear up your property, or they won't show up to work, when it's actually the polar opposite of that. Everyone knows the historical precedents of oppression and slavery in the United States of America. And so when you start looking at the system that was built, the incarceration, the penal system, it was literally designed for people of color. It was designed to basically create a modern day slavery where they could incarcerate people by the masses and lock them up and work them, and that's what they do. When you have, just like right now, a great example is you have prisoners in California fighting wildfires, risking their life every day, all day. And yet, they can't, when they get out, they can't go get a job with the fire department. They can't go get a job. And those are, the vast majority are people of color. They're disposable. They don't really have the same merit in a lot of people's eyes as other people do. So the criminal justice system was designed to, it's a multi-billion-dollar organization, and when people start looking at the way that private industries are set up, and you start looking at numbers and statistics as far as people of color versus their counterparts, then you realize that the system is clearly inequitable, and the scales of justice are balanced unequally. They are balanced for the white people to get richer and the black people to get poorer. So the whole concept of the Tiny House Project was to level the playing field in housing. It was really about making sure that the people that are typically last are first, and see what they do with it. So we calling it a pilot project because we really want to show in black and white, in living time, what really happens when you give people with criminal backgrounds equal access to the same things that people without them have. And what we're going to show is that these people are going to excel. They're going to thrive. They're going to start businesses. They're going to buy homes. They're going to do the same things that everybody else is doing with very minimal support. We're providing the services and supports that anybody can get. We don't just serve people of color. We serve anybody that meets our demographic. But because mass incarceration targets people of color, that's the population that that's the largest percentage of people that we serve, okay? But in all reality, we want to show and be a model for Kalamazoo County, that when you take people that have been impacted by the criminal justice system and you provide a living wage for them and you provide affordable housing, they have now the opportunity to thrive and to actually be on level playing field with everyone else in the community. And that's really what it's about, equitable access for every person. We took a lot of pushback on this project in general. Just starting out, people were like, we'll fund this project if it's for other people. They didn't want to fund a project that was specifically for people with criminal backgrounds. So it really is about making sure that we are trying to do something different, and that we are doing things in a way that we can show from, in real time. The normal going rate for a square foot for regular development right now is about $110 a square foot. So, and that's for, a middle class development. The higher end is obviously more. It's gone down to 47 square feet, but at pre-COVID, that's the numbers that I'm quoting. And so to be making a nice, decent, affordable housing for $1 a square foot is unheard of. And so because of many of our sponsors and many of our partners that supported this project, they really are very interested in proving the fact that when you provide, affordable housing for people and give them the opportunities, that they will thrive. And so this project is $1 a square foot. These units are 410 square feet. So we're talking about $410 rent, plus the utilities, which it's all energy efficient. Bathroom floors are heated. Really, it's all about the windows, the insulation, cutting edge, energy efficient homes that, because of relationships that we have in community, and just people with good-hearted means to be able to really just want to see people equitably housed, really donated a lot of their time, a lot of their effort, a lot of their materials in making this project come to fruition, so that we can charge $410 a month plus utilities. And this is not, and I made the mistake of looking on Facebook and reading comments after after the groundbreak, after the ribbon cutting, and people are ignorant, people are ridiculous. And so I had to get off of Facebook because people were trying to frame and create a narrative like we're getting rich off of people, we're exploiting them, we're discriminating against people that don't have a criminal background, and just all of this nonsense. And so at the end of the day, the whole point is that we are doing something that is completely about making sure that the population that we serve have affordable housing. We're not getting rich off this project. We're not making any money off this project, obviously. The way that we have created our 4-year plan is that, we are creating housing that will pay for itself. And so the overhead is low, the cost of staff is low, but basically, it's self-sufficient. It's going to continue to be self-sustainable based on a lot of the other perimeters that are around it, which is entrepreneurship and home ownership. So those are the umbrella over this project that, I don't think that I talk about it enough, because it's not just about affordable housing. It's about when people get the opportunity to dream, and when they're not surviving day to day, what kinds of things do people think about? What kind of business, what kind of things are they good at? What kind of business could you start? My goal is to make sure that the population that I serve, that they never have to ask anybody for a job, and they never have to pay anybody ridiculous amounts of rent. And the way that we do that is we put our population in positions to start their own businesses and to buy their own homes. And so that is my life's goal, is to make sure that we're creating programs for people so that they are self-sufficient. They're self-employed and they own their own home. This project is, it's entrenched in collaboration and partnerships, and really utilizing all of the resources that Kalamazoo County is really known for. And so we have relationships with people. We're offering full wraparound services and supports on site. So we're working on getting our building built, which is going to sit in front of the tiny houses. But we're going to provide financial literacy. We're going to provide small business training. We're going to provide home ownership skill sets training, financial, credit building, all of those things with Kalamazoo Neighborhood Housing Services, with Community Homeworks, with Small Business Administration, Old National Bank. There's so many community action agencies, so many people that started, we've been working with and referring our participants with, but just for them to be able to come to our office and be able to provide those services on site to the people that live there is going to be really paramount, because we want them to be able to have access to these programs, to be able to have a mentor that's going to help them walk through that process, write a business plan, work on your credit so you can buy a house. And these things are going to be running in tandem, so that people are going to be able to make sure that they're not only working to survive, they're actually working to actually dream. They're working, they have an American dream just like everybody else, but because the odds are stacked against them, they never actually have the opportunity to dream. They're always in survival mode. And so we want people to come out of the survival mode and start dreaming about what that life is going to look like. And we have situated ourselves in a way where Hope Through Navigation provides wraparound services and supports to our clients, to our participants, and to Kalamazoo community at large. We do emergency basic services, but we also have programs and initiatives for the population that we serve, for anybody that wants to participate. So the Tiny House Project is really one of those stepping stones to get people to the next stage. And so our reentry house is really about people coming home from incarceration. It's a 90-day program where they don't have to work. We just want them to work on themselves, soft skills. And then for the next 8 months, because it's actually a 12-month program, they can actually work and save money and do what they need to do. And in a perfect world, those folks would transition into long-term permanent housing, which would be the tiny houses. So it really is, a continuum of care and making sure that we're closing gaps for people and that they have all of the wraparound services and supports each and every step along the way. So people can stay at the tiny houses. There's not a requirement for them, like it's not a 24-month program. It's basic affordable rent. As long as you can pay the rent, you can stay there. Ideally, we would like people, when they transition from there, our goal is for them to transition into their own home. And so we're doing everything within our power to transition people into home ownership. And so when we're going through our applicants, it was, we got hundreds and hundreds of applicants, obviously. People didn't realize that it's very specific criteria. And so we are interviewing every applicant that we have. We have a tiny house steering committee that meets everyone that applies, that's eligible. And then we're determining, like, do they fit what we're, because it's a pilot. So we want to make sure that we're picking people that are really gonna, prove and show, what we're trying to prove and show. And the fact of the matter is, we're trying to lower recidivism rate and overdoses and relapses and create people that are self-sufficient, thriving adults. So we have a phased plan. We have a 5-year plan. Across the street from the phase 1, there will be, we own the land across the street, and so we will be building 3 tiny houses there and a commercial building on that side of the street, which is going to allow folks to be able to work at, kind of do their trades, learn different type of skill sets, interview, resume building, small business plans, just writing your vision and making it plain. And so that's what that commercial building is going to do. And then we're also going to build the 3 homes. Going forward, the plan is to have 6 tiny house hubs in every side of town. And so the goal is to have hubs of tiny houses that provide wraparound services to areas most impacted by the criminal justice system. And so that's how the north side was picked. People, of course, why are you putting it there? It's nothing but drugs and this and that there. Well, it's also where all of the population that we serve, it's the highest concentrated population of the population that we serve. That's where they're at. And so it makes sense because we provide wraparound services to community to be there. And the next place we're coming is Vine. Vine is the second highest concentration of the population that we serve. And so we're looking at some locations over in the Vine neighborhood to provide enough land to be able to do 6 more houses on one site. So yeah, we're gonna have 24 tiny houses in hopefully less than 5 years. Where these houses, and this is the project that is on full display for a reason. It was intentionally picked. I did not just come up with, some random place. I could have went anywhere. And the reason that it's there is because it's within the Northside Cultural Business District, which is a district that is a new district that was zoned with projects like the Tiny Houses of Hope in mind. And so people didn't like the idea, but because it is a designated district, there's not a lot that people can do. And so what we learned is that outreach, and including people in planning. So we have people that are on the committee that, have been unhoused, they have criminal backgrounds, and they're entrenched in communities, so they know people. We do outreach. We invited everyone to town halls to talk about the Tiny House Project, why we were doing it, who these people were gonna be. We invited them every step of the way. That 5-mile radius around the tiny houses, you can't talk to anybody in that zone that doesn't know about the tiny houses and what they do. We flagged and tagged every house. We talked to neighbors that were outside. We were very intentional about letting people know that we were coming into their neighborhood and what we were gonna do. And so that is the difference that people don't realize is so important. You can't just steamroll your way into a neighborhood. You have to communicate, you have to educate, and you have to talk to people that have been there, especially homeowners and businesses. And now we have the event center coming. So there are ways and means to, I don't want to say beat the system, but be more pliable to what you're doing. And it really is about communicating and outreach and community engagement and letting people know, because we never had one person show up at City Hall or the County Commission and say they did not want the tiny houses there. We did things that if more people did it, we would probably be a lot further in a lot of other projects. You can't steamroll your way into people's neighborhood and think that it's going to work, especially if you're talking about unhoused people, if you're talking about people that have an addiction, even veterans. People don't talk a lot about it, but people don't like veterans in their neighborhoods either, because they feel like they're kind of like a loose cannon. Like they might just click one day and shoot up the neighborhood or whatever the case may be. So people have preconceived ideals. And what we have to do, what I've learned that we needed to do, is to, try to create comfort zones for people and bring people into the project and let them see exactly what we're doing early on in the project, not at the ribbon cutting. That's not going to be helpful. We wanted to make sure that people knew as soon as we bought the property, before the houses were even on, before we even were funded, we started talking to people, because we knew that the city commission, it's the first of its kind project. We knew that when the city commission started talking about giving us money, if people didn't like the idea, they were going to show up at city commission. If they didn't like it, the idea, when the county commission gave us the money that they gave us, $350,000, they wouldn't like it. And I didn't want to have to go through that whole process of letting people know what we're doing and having them come and doing a second reading and all of the things that go on with government. And so if you do your homework up front, you will avoid a lot of the instances where people will be angry and show up at city commission and try to tear your project down. I think the biggest thing is to know that this is a phased project. We're working on raising money. We're always raising money for the tiny houses. So if people want to support the Tiny Houses Project, they can go on our website, www.hope-thrunavigation.org. We're always looking for volunteers, always looking for people to support the work that we're doing, that not necessarily about tiny houses, but just volunteers. We do a lot of things in community all year round, and so we would be glad to have people's support in that way.